Good afternoon. Good day of Yom Tov. It's 1:30. This is a shir that was supposed to start at 12. So I reckon you could say I'm late. You know, one of the interesting halachas is if a person is mafsik b'tefillah, then he wants to go back to his tefillah. Can he start in the middle, or he has to go back to the beginning again? So one of the dinim is that if the length of the hefsik was the duration of the entire tefillah, then you have to go back to the beginning. I figured that the length of this delay is the duration of the entire shir, and mistama, and then some. So, got to go back and give the shir. I'm not going to give it twice, but we'll give it once. Now, this is Vayedaber Elokim. It's called Vayedaber Elokim. Of course, yesterday we learned that this is a hemshech to the maimed that we learned on Thursday. The maimed of Thursday is edited. Even the maimed from yesterday is edited. I forgot if I put it up yet. I think I did put it up. This is Wednesday and Tuesday. The maimed of Tuesday, which was the Bishar Sheikdimu. I had certain issues with the way I gave the maimed, so when I edited it, I added a lot of things. I took some things out. So I'm not going to say it's a panim chadash, it's boyes lakan, but it's substantively different than the way I gave it live. Yesterday's shir was the first half of this maimed. Vayedaber Elokim is called Vayedaber Elokim. I didn't change it almost at all. I was happy with the delivery. And in the beginning of yesterday's shir, I actually finished the shir from the day before, discussing a little bit the meaning of the terminologies, Sheresh HaNevroim, and then even the meaning of the words Sheresh HaNetzolim. So we're going to continue and hopefully complete this maimed today. Now, I don't know why I'm saying this. I guess I'm saying it because it's when you make a pledge and you say it b'dibur, you're machayev yourself. Next week Sunday is at Chassidus. If all goes well, I'd like to teach 2 ACS of Kuf Yates. Today I did Ayin, and the Mitzvah Shem Sunday I'm planning to do Pei, but I don't have yeshiva in the morning, so in theory at least we could also do Tzaddik. But of course everything depends on Siyata Dishmaya and Ezer Hashem Yizborech and so on. But the maimed that I'm planning to teach is from Tafshin Yud Beis, the Shvuas maimed from Tafshin Yud Beis. The Shvuas maimed from Yud Aleph, there's 2 of them. Chamisha Kinyonim I did last year in 770 in Beis Rabbeinu Sheva Bavel in Beis Medrash L'Nashma Bana 770. The maimed from Tafshin Yud Beis is Bishar Sheikdimu, and it's a pretty long maimed. I didn't prepare it. I didn't really look at it. I simply noticed that I haven't taught it yet on my list, on my computer, on the website, inside Chassidus.org. So I said to myself that mentally, in my head, that Blined, this will be the maimed they'll do for much of next week. We'll see. The Rebbe the Balabas from the Welt, as we all know. So in Mirza Hashem, it'll play out outside the Yeser Tev, outside the Yeser Moyel, and Iker Kol Ikrim. We want Mashiach now, Mamish, today. Farmat and Teire in Tavshin Pei, and the Nachat and Herren Teire Chadasha Mimenu. For the Meibishten from Mashiach, Tzidkenu, from alle Gute Yidden. But today we're going to finish the maimed of Vayedaber Elokim. And as I told you, this is a hemshech to the maimed before. And of course the point is to say that at Matan Teire, on Shabbos morning, Vav Sivan, when the Eibusha came down on the mountain and gave us the Teire, something happened which is completely beyond all of the things that happened before, even though before there were so many great miracles. And the first word that denoted this distinction is the word Lamed. This was in the previous maimed, Lamed. And the translation of the word Lamed is that when a Yid learns Teire, he's simply repeating after the Eibishter. And because when a Yid learns Teire, he's repeating after the Eibishter, the Teire that he learns, that's Koyach al the Eibishter's Teire. And this Koyach comes from the fact that the Eibishter gave us the Teire. And it didn't happen till Shavuos, till Shabbos, Shavuos. Not Friday, and not Monday, not the Chassidus, even not Haysiv, even Dafka, and Shabbos. Lamed. And of course, one of the points that I've made in the last maimed was that just like by Yetzias Mitzrayim, there's a property, there's a quality, there's an aspect of unilateralism. It's actually the Maimon before. There's an aspect of unilateralism. The Eibishter tut alein. So by Matan Torah is a similar notion. There's a lamer. The Eibishter gives himself to us. His etzem, which is higher than Sheiresh HaNivroim and higher than Sheiresh HaNetzolim. And with this koyach, when the Yid learns Torah, it's in Achar HaKereh. Our Maimer continues that theme, but the focus is not on the word lamer, the focus is on the word anoichi. And again, the idea of anoichi is that's higher than say the Ishtalshlus, it's higher than Sheiresh HaNivroim, and even though he doesn't say it, we're going to say that l'cheire, it's the same as in the Maimer before the Sheiresh HaNetzolim, it's biz atzmus amhus, anoichi. But when it comes to anoichi, he added something additional which he didn't focus on so much in the last Maimer. And that is that the measure of anoichi is not only that the Eibush is mamshech lakus from an incredibly high level, but the measure of anoichi is that the lakus comes from an incredibly high level and it descends to an incredibly low level. The measure of anoichi is that it comes biz lamata mata till tachtein. So on the one hand, anoichi comes, what do you say, from Kesed and from Pnimis HaKesed and from Radlo and Ein Seif. Hamalubish B'Radlo. These are my words. Sham Chev Yenez HaAtzmos. Like I explained to you in the introduction of yesterday's class, that Kvayochel, the Eibishter, gives himself to us in such a way that there's a breakdown of the separation between giver and givir. Yid and Eibishter are one. What's left for today is the other half. That because the anoichi reaches so high, it's mamshech alakus so low. And there are a series of points that support this idea. The first is that Aseres Adibris is Dvarim Pshutim, and by the way, all of the questions are now going to be answered. Because he asked in the beginning of the Maimer, why is Aseres Dvarim Pshutim? And it's also going to explain why it's so important to say Divrei Torah B'dibur, because it's also bringing the alakus to a lower level. And he's also going to introduce us to this concept of Chiddush. Ashtikel Enayis. Chiddush. And the Koyach v'Chiddush comes from Anoichi, and the Rebbe is going to argue that when he makes a Chiddush in Torah, he makes a Chiddush in the world. And that Lasat Love is going to be revealed. So I just said three things. Number one, that the Chiddush of Anoichi is not only that you're mamshech from a very high level, from Kesed and Pnimis HaKesed and Adlo, and Neshama Chav Yidei Za'atzmos. But there is nimshach lamata mato, to the very, very lowest levels of this world, as represented by the fact that Matan Torah deals with Dvarim Pshutim, and represented by the fact that the mitzvah of Talmud Torah is dafka b'dibur, and represented by the idea that a year is able to mechadish chadashim and Torah, kvayochal the Eibush is mechadish chadashim and Torah. So let's learn. I want you to excuse me. This is my stay awake drink, so you'll have to forgive me. Pay the Gimel. Okay, Shim Chavdal. Now we understand. Gam. Masha said, when the Eibush gave the Ten Commandments, he tells us very simple things. Simple in the sense that we knew them already. And simple in the sense that if he wouldn't tell them, we would know them on our own. Ki, says the Rebbe, why? That's what's special about Matan Torah. That even though we're doing ordinary things that a person intellectually could do by himself, but when the Eibishter gives the mitzvah, but it creates a mitzvah, which means a bonding, a being next to and becoming one with. The word tzavza means ite ime, to be close to him. In mitzav, HaMitzvah is the one who gave us this mitzvah, so that's Musim Husi is Barach, the Eibishter himself. Right, I was thinking the word from the Harav Chaim Gutnik, Kalav Shalom. It's not his word, but he chazed it. When the Rebbe said to bring Mashiach, when you're learning in Yoni Mashiach Agula, Harav Chaim Gutnik and Harav Yitzchak David Yoner Aliyah Mashalom Zechenim Levracha from Melbourne made a tour of the world, went all over the place, and they stood him together. Amazach Kochen and Yoni Mashiach. And Rabbi Chaim Gutnik had a speech which he would repeat again and again and again. And that one of the points of his speech was that you have in Tanakh that Naaman Ho'ameni was Sartzav Aram. Naaman was the chief of staff. He was the commander in chief. He was the head military person in Aram, in Syria. And he became a leper, became a Metzeda. And it was a conversation between his boss, the king of Aram, and the boss of the king of Eretz Yisrael, Yehu ben Nimshi, I think. And he was lamenting that his chief general is ill. He says, by us we have Ish Elokim. In Shaimirite we had Elisha. And of course, Elisha had a distinction that none of the other Nevi'ei Hashem had, that the Shemirim loved him. The Shemirim loved Avodah Zarah. Yeah, they were Apokursim, but they were Chassidim. By Eliyahu, Novi, Kani Kenesi, by Shem Elokei. So Eliyahu couldn't stand them, and they couldn't stand the Beis Omri, and Eliyahu didn't come, Oiske Beis Yehu, which lasted 100 years, they were the Shoyim, but the Navi had a home. The famous story of Kisei Mita Shulchan Aruch was in Shemirim. In northern Eretz Yisrael, the Malchus Yisrael, as opposed to Malchus Yehuda. So this king says to the king of the boss of Naaman Amani, if I'm boss Ish Elokim, so he sends him to Eretz Yisrael, which was of course a very humbling thing. The nation of Aram considered themselves superior to Eretz Yisrael, and they send him to Ish Elokim. So he shows up, and the Navi doesn't even walk out, and the Navi sends out his Mishadas, his name is Gehazi, to go out to tell Naaman that he should be tavel in the Yarden, to wash himself in the River Jordan, which was a trickle of a river, and it was not much to be. It was not the hottest thing in the world, and he was very insulted. Naaman was, and the Navi Elisha warned Gehazi that he should have no hanav, and he shouldn't take him anything. Anyway, Naaman left. He's furious. That's how he comes to meet the Navi. He doesn't want to talk to me. He doesn't come out to agree me. He doesn't invite me in. Just tell me go tavel in this. He says in Damascus have the best baths. So people said to him, I don't understand. If he had told you to do something impossible, go to the North Pole, you would have listened. So because he told you something easy, therefore you're questioning the veracity of what he said, try it. So he tried it. He went to the Yarden, and guess what? He recovered. So now he was impressed. Yeah, the Navi Ish Elokim had gemacht amoifes. He was impressed. So he came to say thank you. I'm sorry. And of course, Elisha had warned Gehazi not to take anything from Naaman, and Gehazi didn't listen, and then Gehazi became a Metzeda, and of course it's a very, very important but not so comfortable part of Jewish history, what happened to Gehazi about the Abba Metzeda. So Rabbi Gutnik made the point that sometimes the Navi tells you to do something, and you can't believe that it's useful. Why? Because it's easy. The Rebbe said to bring Mashiach through Limud and Mashiach Agula. Just do what he said. Learn Mashiach Agula. How could learning Mashiach Agula? It doesn't seem like it's not Lefayerech their prize. That's not your concern. The Navi, the Ish Elokim said, learn Mashiach Agula. That's what he should. This was his vart. Him and Rabbi Groner traveled the world, and this was his speech. And here you have the same idea. The Eibusher gave us mitzvahs that if he wouldn't give them to us, we would know them on our own. And when we do them, we make it tzavsa v'chibur amatzmos. The fact that they're easy, the fact that we could know them by ourselves and all the other aspects doesn't mean that it's not Ratz in the Kale. And that's one of the Chidushim, the Chidush of Matan Torah, is that the Eibusher is even in Dvarim Achi Pshutim. And of course, I want to mention the Veistach, the Mar, Ishena, Mesina, Afelo, Mesina. But the Rebbe speaks about the Sichas of Mishpatim, come upon the Maimorim and the Sichas, including Mishpatim, Tavshin, and Beis. That the truth is that even the simplest ideas that are so basic and so elementary and so commonsensical that people would know them by themselves, you need Eibusher to tell it to you. Because if the Eibusher wouldn't say it, you wouldn't do it. The Rebbe spoke about war. You need to have a Navi to say people shouldn't kill each other. The world is full of war. And the Rebbe says now we see a cessation of war, or efforts that are being made to interrupt war. And the Rebbe says, don't think it's because Goyim got smarter. It's because this is Mipu'olaisav, Shal Melech, HaMashiach, Ba'atzmei, that there should be a Maimed Matzav of Lo Yisa, Goy, Al Goy Cherev, Lo Yalamdu, Lo Yalamedu, Ish Milchama. That this is a Nyin Ruchni, meaning to say that even the most basic ideas, when people keep them, it's because the Eibusher said. Or to say it in different words, what the Rebbe used to say often, that there's a question that the modern world asks, why do I have to have a higher power? Why do I have to have the Eibusher telling me to keep Shabbos, to keep mitzvahs? Why can't I do it? I'll be Hechras Seichel. And the Rebbe used to say that when you create your own morality based on your own mind, so you're basically your own God. And then you can find Hadstokas, you can find justifications for the most evil and cruel things, and it's consistent with your philosophy. And the Rebbe mentioned in the Fabrengen that during the Holocaust, when the Nazis, Yemach Shemam V'Zichram, were systematically killing millions of Yidden and millions of other people, they had serious laws about cruelty to animals. And you wonder, how could a nation that's so cruel and evil, be concerned with animals. And the answer is when you're your own God, you figure out how to make things which are completely contradictory coexist. That's why you have to have a higher power. And that's why even for Dvarim Achi Pshutim, you have to have a head off in the Meibish. So the Chassidus Adibah speaks Dvarim Pshutim, says the Rebbe. Why? So this is different than another Maimorim, right? Other Maimorim say a different word. Here the Rebbe's word is, because the simplest thing you have to hear from God. Or to say it in other words, the simplest thing is different when you hear it from God. You knew it on your own, it's one thing, and the Eibush tells you to do it's a whole different thing. I didn't meet him. He died when my father was a boy. He made it out of Russia, but he didn't make it out of Poki. It was a big chassid. So, Nevlet detailed, that in Temchakmimim and Lubavitch, a whole Thursday night they would sit, learn, daven, Eisek and Yon and Pnimiyim. And Rabbi Paltiel had been doing it for years. Once he was probably already married. The Rebbe Rashab told him in Yechidus that it's a Zeit as Altrachtenberg and Sitzen Leil Shishi, that he should stay up Thursday night. So Rabbi Paltiel said the minute the Rebbe Rashab told him to do it, it became impossible. His eyelids were like lead. He'd been doing it for years, but the minute the Rebbe told him, it became difficult. Farvos, because a mitzvah ve'es is different than a mitzvah ve'es. And that's the word. You need the Eibishter to tell you even the simplest things, because then it's a whole other simple thing. The Eibishter's koyach hatzivu extends even to Dvarim Pshutim. The Eibishter's idea of tzafs, that when you do something, you create a bond between him and you, is true even in Dvarim Achi Pshutim. So the Chassidus Adibah speak to these ideas to teach us this lesson. That what makes a mitzvah, a tzavtza v'chibur with the Eibush, is not that it's difficult, or that it's sophisticated, or that it's complex, or it's deep. It's that the Eibush to say it. And the Eibush says, lo ysignev, and you don't steal. There's also a tzavtza v'chibur atzamas amuz, even though it's so commonsensical and so poshut, because Hashem said. And the Chassidus Adibah speak Dvarim Pshutim to make this point that the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu applies even to Dvarim Achi Pshutim and so on. Key. Because the Anechi, which is a lukus on the level of Atzmos, is drawn ad the Dvarim Pshutim, even to the simplest of things. In other words, ad mokim, to a level, as the Gemara says, the Masechta Shabbos, that Moshe Rabbeinu had to defend why we got the Torah and the Malachim didn't get the Torah. And he had to say, you don't have a Yetzer Hara, and you don't have a father and a mother, and you don't have business, and you don't have other needs. So in Mele, you don't have to yag mitzvahs. But that's the mitzvahs on a very low level. Because at Yaduim Aforsim, when the Malachim said to Moshe Rabbeinu, to the Eibishter, to know Hoyt Chala Shamayim, give the Torah in heaven, they didn't mean the Torah with the physical mitzvahs. They meant the Ruchnias Dika Torah. And Moshe's answer is, Klum Mitzvayim Yiradatim. How's it a Teretz? Because it's not the pshat that they can't do the mitzvahs and we could do it. They could do it beruchnias, we could do it begashmis, and gashmis is more important. Gashmis is more important because it's lower and slower. This is the first word of answering the questions in this Maimeh, that because by Chassidus Adibah says Nimshach HaKoyach of Anochi, which is higher than anything which is before Matan Torah, as great as it was. It comes all the way down into the Dvarim Achi Pshutim. And then we read the next paragraph. Excuse me for a second. Sorry. I'm sorry, this is helpful to keep me awake. This explains also how the Rebbe explained Leimer at the beginning of this Maimon in yesterday's class. That Leimer means, like it says in Halacha, that Talmud Torah has to be dafka bepeh. Leimas beginning of Anavasog. It's not enough to learn Torah to understand it and intellectually access it. Even though they're the higher faculties of the human being. But rather, learning has to be dafka with the power of speech. As we said in this Maimer, in the translation of Leimer on the first page. And in the previous Maimer, we explained Leimer in a very esoteric way. Leimer in the last Maimer was like Anechi in this Maimer. But here, Leimer means the halacha, that when you learn Divrei Torah, you have to say in Bedibur. And the shaila is why? Limud Torah is Iyun, Chochma, like the Rebbe said in the beginning in a Maimer. speaking it, and especially speaking it to another person, can interfere with the concentration. So the Rebbe says, you're not speaking divrei Torah, you should understand it. You're speaking divrei Torah for tzavsa v'chibur, for doing a mitzvah. Ki. We understand when you do mitzvahs. It can even be in simple things. Or to say it differently, even the mitzvahs which we don't understand are connected to simple physical things. And in that kiyama mitzvah bepoil, physically actually doing this mitzvah. The Taf, so who says the Heilige Rebbe, the same as one learns Torah, the tzarech is b'dibur daf, you have to speak the words of Torah. In other words, Shabbatayda, Guf, in Shalmaisazut, in Jewish law, in Dibur and Halacha. Dibur is considered a Maishazut, a miniature action. But it's an action nevertheless. And if you're familiar with the Tanya, what the Rebbe says in Tanya, that when you do machshava, it comes to your brain and to your nefesh halakis. But when you do Dibur, it comes to your Guf. And because when you do Dibur, it comes to the Guf, it has to come to the nefesh habahamis, because the connection between the neshama and the Guf is through the nefesh habahamis. So speaking is mevarer, not just the moyech and the nefesh halakis, but the Guf and the nefesh habahamis, but dafke if you speak. Shalachem, which explains why kol eisik b'teira chulu kil hikra. If a person learns Teira, it's as if he did this mitzvah, and the Rebbe's diuk is kol eisik b'teira is blank. Ki'ilu hikra blank is true when you say it b'dibur. Because you don't say it b'dibur, it's a mitzvah b'machshava. And mitzvahs b'machshava don't have this effect. If you say it b'dibur, a mitzvah b'dibur is considered a ma'aseh zuta. Now you did a mitzvah. And as simple as it is, and as easy as it is, and as much as you think it's a superficial thing and a secondary thing, from your angle, it's not a big deal. From the Eibish's angle, it's the ikir. Yeah, this idea that when a person learns Torah, any part of Torah, it's as if he did the mitzvah which is associated with that part of Torah, but there's something more. What's the something more? We find occasionally in halacha, not always, but occasionally in halacha we find that learning Torah comes before doing mitzvahs. Now the Rebbe doesn't say how and why, but I wrote on the margin, which says in halacha and in Chassidus, which is a mitzvah she'efshel lases hayadei acheda, a mitzvah that somebody else could do, you're not mavatal Torah. Mitzvah she'i efshel lases hayadei acheda, like for example tefillin. You can't put your tefillin on somebody else's goof. So here we say that you're mavatal Talmud Torah to do a mitzvah. Mitzvahs come first. But there are mitzvahs that the Torah come before the mitzvah, and of course the vart is when a mitzvah is efshel lases hayadei acheda. This is what I think. So first of all, there's the idea of saying mitzvahs b'dibur is echet shein aniyim from gashmi. And second of all, the idea that a Torah takes place of a mitzvah is a raya, that in Torah you have milas ha-mitzvah. And he explains. Kamesha calls us in the pasuk is based on a Gemara, v'chol chafeitzim lo yishvu ba, all desires don't equal to limud ha-Torah, afilu chefte shamayim lo yishvu ba, even the desires. And of course, you all know the Gemara. The Gemara made cotton daf tes, footnote 48, that there's two mamar chazal. One pasuk is kol chafetzecha lo yishvu ba, and the other one is kol chafetzim lo yishvu ba. So the Gemara says, what's the difference between two kol chavetzecha? Means your personal material chavetzim are not equal to Torah, but when it comes to Yonim Ruchniim, Torah is not the highest in you. But the other pasuk, kol chafetzim liyishubau, includes even chefte shamayim. And the Rebbe quotes this second one to argue that Torah takes precedence even over mitzvahs. And again, I don't know this for sure, but I'm going to assume when it's in a case of it's a mitzvah she'ef shel lasas hayadei acheda. I'm sorry, that's efshel lasa de'achedim. Somebody else could do it instead of you, so then Torah comes first. So the Rebbe says, if that's the case, that when a person is learning Torah, there's a mitzvah that comes up, but somebody else could do it, the Torah takes precedence. Is that raya that in this limud Torah you also have ma'aseh hamita ma'ila of ma'aseh mitzvah. So this is the second thing. Number one, I'm learning Torah, I'm saying it b'dibur shayna ma'aseh zot. And number two, when I'm learning Torah, and it pushes away the even kiyama mitzvah, it's not mitzvah she'i efshel lases. But rather it's a mitzvah which is and somebody else can do for me. I'm going to sit and learn Torah. You have to say that am I limud that Torah, you have that kiyama mitzvah. Says the Rebbe. Key. Explanation is this. Number one. Last line, Shirach of Dalet. First of all, Shagodl limud shemeilu demais. The reason you would say that Talmud Torah comes before mitzvahs is because when you learn Torah, you know how to do mitzvahs. So if it's a mitzvah, Torah is more important. But there's number two, limud Torah gufa. When a person is studying Torah, he's speaking the divrei Torah, and therefore it's ma'aseh zut, it's considered an action, and therefore mitzvahs. Every mitzvah includes every other mitzvah. And he brings the Chazal al derech hamavur b'makamacha. Let's explain in Chassidus on the Gemara. Ha'oisek b'mitzvah potor min ha'mitzvah. If a person is busy with one mitzvah, he's potting up another mitzvah. And the Rebbe says in the parenthesis, Azay shetechet and zayir. Now, how could a person become exempt from one mitzvah doing another? He's still missing out on that mitzvah. And in Chassidus, they explain the principle of his kalalus, that the mitzvah that I'm doing, I have also the mitzvah that I'm not doing. And that's why you have all of these rules of which mitzvahs are mevatel other mitzvahs and which mitzvahs are mevatel Talmud Torah and which Talmud Torah is mevatel mitzvahs. These set the rules. But when a person is doing one mitzvah, like Pidyon Shvuyim, and because he's doing that one mitzvah, he can't read Krishma, in the Pidyon Shvuyim, there's Krishma. So the Rebbe says, when the Chazal say, Kol chaveitim leyishuba, filu chavte shamayim, and many mitzvahs, you don't stop to do the mitzvah because Teira is present of the mitzvah. Parenthesis, unless it's mitzvah. So you have to say that in that kiyama mitzvah, you also, in that Teira, you also have that mitzvah. Just like when I'm doing one mitzvah, it includes the other mitzvah. When I'm studying Teira, it includes all the mitzvahs. Why is this? Shekol mitzvah yesh bal kol ponim ein kol shara mitzvahs. The principle of a esig b'mitzvah patur mitzvah is that all mitzvah connected to one body. And when I do one mitzvah, I'm connected indirectly to the other mitzvah. Sharaim them, but if I'm going to say, Shemitzvah, that we're doing one mitzvah. Ein nekalels ba'atzva mitzvah cheres does not include the other mitzvah. Ein imun, it really doesn't make any sense. Eich nifter al yadam mitzvah cheres. If I'm doing Pidyon Shvuyim, and I therefore don't put on, say, tefillin, kishma, and doing Pidyon Shvuyim has nothing to do with tzedakah. If the mitzvahs were not connected, if I did Pidyon Shvuyim, maybe it puts aside Krishma, but doesn't make you potam a mitzvah. It means ha'isik b'mitzvah, ein ha'isik mitzvah cheres. Potam a mitzvah means that I'm collecting one opinion trim. As if I read Krishma. What does one have to do with the other? And of course the answer is because when each mitzvah includes all the other mitzvahs, and whatever mitzvah I'm doing includes all of the mitzvahs as well. If it's true from mitzvah to mitzvah, that when I'm doing one mitzvah, I'm potam doing a different mitzvah, which is a proof that in the mitzvah I'm doing, you have the other mitzvah. Says the Rebbe, the same is true when it comes to tefillah, to learning Torah. To Torah, to learning Torah. Now that'll leave manyanenu the key vanchalim Torah. Since one's learning Torah, kiyama mitzvahs pushes away doing mitzvahs. Move on it, you have to say pshat sheyesh. Balim without Torah, when you're studying Torah, you have me'ain, something similar. Of Maisa HaMitzvahs are doing the mitzvahs. When you're learning Torah, you're saying it with your lips, and saying with your lips is considered a Maisa Zuta. So when limud Torah of Malas HaAsiyah, which is why Davka Dei HaLimud B'Dibur Nishali in Ashikha, which explains why you have to speak the words of Divrei Torah, because as the Rebbe just told us, speaking words of Divrei Torah is a mitzvah. First of all, it's Gadol Limud Shemeva Demais. Second of all, it's called Esek b'mitzvah achas, potter mitzvah cheres, because each mitzvah includes all the others. So when I'm learning Torah, it's not the pshat, I don't have to do the other mitzvah. In my Torah, I have the other mitzvahs that I'm not doing, but only if I do it in the level of asiyah. That's what has to be dibur. You know that in video tshuva, it's a machtzedek. He also asks why it has to be video b'dibur. And he explains basically that, I guess what you would call tshuva hamishkal. You didn't have it in kavanan and maiseh. You have to do tshuva in kavanan and maiseh. Here we're not talking about tshuva, we're talking about pashat mitzvahs. A yid learns Torah, since you're saying it b'dibur, it's the equivalent of an asiyah of any other mitzvah. And therefore, only when a person learns Torah and speaks out loud, he's not going to forget, like it says in the Gemara. To fulfill the mitzvah, learned Torah has to be in speech. Only when I learn with my mouth, and I'm actually saying the words. The taste of Shlomo with B'Teirasi is the person's Torah whole. Once Torah becomes an eternity, which is Heipachin at Shikha. On the level of eternity, there's no possibility for Shikha. So by saying it b'dibur, you don't forget. Why? Because you bring it down to a level of asiyah. And by bringing it down to a level of asiyah, you're not going to forget it. Okay? So I guess you could say these are 3 points in why you have to Torah b'dibur. Number 1, God will leave what you may will day, Maiseh. Number 2, when I'm doing Torah, I'm doing a mitzvah, and therefore it takes place of other mitzvahs. And number 3, when I do it b'dibur, I won't forget. Okay, I'm going to put this on, I'm going to stop this.